at the outset, could I join with Senator O'Loughlin in expressing our heartfelt sympathy to the families of the two young men who so tragically died in Greece. It seems to be a feature of this time of year that this kind of thing happens, but it's a huge tragedy for the families, for the entire school community, and it's just awful. If I could turn to one or two things around housing, having made that other important association with that vote of sympathy, but could I move to, when I came into local government in 1985 and onward, we had a thing, we used to build what they called in those days rural houses, rural cottages they were often called, but they were rural houses and they were dotted throughout rural Ireland. It involved the person might need a site. They came within social housing categorisation. They were entitled to social housing. And those limits need to be increased a little bit at the moment. They're unrealistically low. But they were entitled to social housing. And they usually had a site or access to a site, a family member, a relation or something, it was a small plot of land, would give them a site, or there was a site available to them in some fashion. And that rural house was built. And I think it was good for rural communities in terms of social mix, in terms of from every perspective, that it doesn't need elaboration. It was good for the dynamic of rural communities and bringing new people in. And it was also good to give people the dignity of living in their own area if they could access the site. That was the only prerequisite then. And in some instances it was possible maybe to provide a site because of a vacant bit of land somewhere that a council owned or whatever. So I think we should revisit that, and I'd ask you to convey that to the Minister for Housing, in that I think that's a worthy thing to look at again. Now, the argument, of course, against it would be the one-off housing thing, but I don't agree to that. I think it should be done subject to proper planning and subject to environmental considerations. I also think the Croí scheme, or rather the money for doing up derelict buildings, is very, very attractive and is a very good scheme. And I would mention to you, Leader, there's one technical difficulty with it, and it's that in some instances, in certain scenarios, the councils can have a clawback where a person doesn't fulfil the various terms of or whatever. And that is putting banks to be less than enthusiastic about mortgages in some cases. I know the matter's been dealt with the department. I've been in direct contact with the department myself, as have other colleagues. But I just want to draw it to your attention again, and you might bring it up again with the Minister for Housing. And on the question of vacant housing, it's an amazing experience to walk around Dublin someday. I had occasion to do it recently. The number of vacant properties all around this city, large buildings right throughout the city that should be brought into use, is incredible. Maybe Croí will help, but whatever it takes between compulsory purchase orders, taxation, whatever, those properties should be in use. There's a huge amount. It's frightening when you walk around. I invite anyone to walk around the city someday and see this all along the quays everywhere. So thank you. I know the time's up. Thank you. Thank you.